Hello and welcome to Max or Us. Just today's short video about SSDs and Apple. Um, Obviously, the SSD revolution is essentially in full swing now. The brief foray into fusion drives was stopped. SSDs are fast and they are good. However, the key thing that you need to know about SSDs is they have a finite lifespan. Each bit of information has a finite number of read writes it can do. Now, obviously, you see the Macs up there, the old Macs. Apple has been using virtual memory for since the days of PowerPC. I remember the old RAM doubler utilities in a way to double our RAM. What you need to be very careful of when you're upgrading your hard drive to an SSD is that you have enough memory on your computer. As essentially what Apple will do is when you're running close to your maximum capacity of RAM, it will use your hard drive as virtual memory, which is, with an SSD, is lightning fast, but you're just going to degrade your your SSD hard drive down quite quickly. Especially if you don't have the AppleSSD file system. So you need to ensure that you have the AppleSSD file system, so an operating system that supports the AppleSSD, and you want to, if possible, upgrade your RAM so that you're hardly ever going to touch your hard drive as virtual memory. I, as a programmer, regularly use over 32 gigabytes of RAM. So my benchmark is I have an app memory diagnosis that tells me how much memory I'm using, so I can keep a tab, which is how I know that I use on regular occasions 32 gigabytes of RAM. Google Firefox, they use more memory than Safari. 8 gigabytes of RAM is enough to run your system and Apple apps. And it will do other apps, but just one at a time. Really, is the rule of thumb. Ideally, you want to be using, if you've got a solid state drive, you want to have potentially 16 gigabytes of RAM minimum in your system, and that's just purely to ensure that you're not overly using the hard drive as a memory scratch disk. It's a very simple tool, and it's just to ensure that your computer lives longer. So if you're upgrading to an SSD, think about upgrading your memory as well, just so that you're not using your hard drive as a scratch disk, memory scratch disk. Very simple. It feeds into this little nugget, will feed into other videos, but this is the key thing. SSDs are great, they're nice and fast. But what you don't want to do is upgrade the SSD without upgrading the RAM, because it will eat through the hard drive quicker, especially if you have multiple apps open and you don't close them down. So the revolution has come and it's in full swing, but because there's been a lack of information out there telling people, some people are still using their computers as if it were a mechanical drive. You need to alter the way that you're using computers with regard to SSDs. You can't. Just one last thing, like the MacBook Air, brilliant computer. It's got 8 gigabytes RAM, 125, 250 gigabytes hard drive, solid state drive. These are fine if you're doing very limited tasks. Like I said, they're blindingly fast. I can actually do my programming on one of those. And like I said, I regularly use over 32 gigabytes of RAM, and I can compile a code just as quickly on those machines as I can on a 32, 64 gigabyte Studio or MacBook Pro. The problem with that is, I know it's using the hard drive as a virtual memory. And it's so blindingly fast that there's no dropping. very little noticeable drop in performance. However, I, as an expert, a very good expert, know that that is essentially eating through the limited capacity of the solid state drive. Each bit of the solid state drive that can store information has a finite number of read writes. When they start to go, they will just cascade down and the drive will disappear. And it can be like that, okay? The APFS file system moves things around, but that moving things around is also eating through your finite number of read writes. So you just got to be very careful. When upgrading to an SSD, think about upgrading your RAM as well. Thank you very much.